competition would eventually affect price. Whatever the investor, whatever government, whatever the citizens think, the ultimate is competition brings down price.
Yes, Chukwudi, thanks. Part of what, I don't know, I think these are issues we'll focus on when we are discussing again issues around fuel subsidy. But if you don't deal with the mafia that had crippled the 4 refineries, we'll continue to be in trouble. If you don't deal with the mafia that has profited significantly from the subsidy regime, then you're going to have issues around. And the mafia members, if you like the mafiosi, they are in country and also outside of the country. And why it seems so easy to sabotage us, it's a function of the character of the Nigerian elite.
Exactly. And on that note, we wrap it up. We can't keep saying this every day, but the good thing is that part of our job is to let Nigerians know what is happening and do analysis of issues happening in the country. Chukwudi, would like to thank you again for being here this morning. We're going to see you again tomorrow.
Thanks,
on Monday.
Thanks,
for another session of what the papers are saying. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We take a break now. When we return, we shall be focusing our attention on the main topic for conversation. Do stay with us. You have to move from the point where you protect and defend your religion to a point where you also recognize the rights of the other person, of the other religion, and protect it. So if I am protecting my own territory and my own people and trying to emphasize their rights and protect their rights, I should also be thinking about how to protect the rights of the others.
Both Islam and Christianity recognize and defer to God, and both recognize the temporariness of the life of this world, and that ultimately we all go back to God for the day of reckoning, when everybody will render an account of his life on this temporary abode.
Your skill is key to your professional growth in the competitive broadcast media industry. Take advantage of the following programs specially packaged by NTA Television College Jos to upgrade your skill. Marketing in the era of digital broadcast. Date 13th June to 23rd June 2023, 2 weeks. Drama Production Workshop. Date 3rd July to 21st July 2023, 3 weeks. Intermediate Online News Reporting Skills. Date 24th July to 11th August 2023, 3 weeks. The course fee for the 2-week course is 120,000 Naira, while the fee for the 3-week course is 150,000 Naira only. Accommodation inclusive. All courses will hold at NTA Television College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For further inquiries, please call 0803-079-5335 or 0806-980-9807. NTA Television College, Jos, training you to be the best you want to be. Registrar Announcer.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we thank you for staying with us up till this moment. Now, before we start our conversation on healing post-elections trauma, here is Ekene Ndulue's report to, of course, prompt us for the conversation.
2023 elections have come and gone, and winners declared for the various elective positions. As expected, not everyone is satisfied with the election results, and many have expressed their displeasures at the Election Petition Court, both at the state and national levels. While the contenders are still waiting for the court to determine the cases before it, elected officials at the executive arm of government have been inaugurated, as government cannot exist in a vacuum. Many whose preferred candidates did not win the election have, however, not come to terms with this reality and are obsessively engaged to prove their beliefs that the other side is wrong. This feeling, referred to as post-election stress trauma by psychologists, is known to cause fears about the future, uncontrollable anger, and negative thoughts that loop endlessly. Political pundits believe this feeling is not healthy for progressive government, as government needs the support of its citizens to successfully fulfill its mandate. This is not lost on the new administration, and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is already extending the olive branch. In his inaugural speech, the president said, in quote, "Whether from the winding creeks of the Niger Delta, the vastness of the northern savannah, the boardrooms of Lagos, the bustling capital of Abuja, or the busy markets of Onitsha, you are all my people. As your president, I shall serve with prejudice towards none, but compassion and amity towards all." On this episode of Good Morning Nigeria, guests shall be speaking on healing post-election trauma.
All right, thank you very much, Keneun Dule, for that backgrounder. We have guests, of course, here with us in the studios and elsewhere from the country who will be joining us for today's conversation. Let's welcome Ali M. Ali, veteran journalist, and he was also Deputy Director of Media and Publicity at the APC Presidential Campaign Council. Ali, we're glad to have you this morning.
Well, good morning, viewers, and it's good to be here. I think it's in order. I learned Good Morning Nigeria today is the 9th anniversary, so I say kudos to you. You guys have engaged Nigerians every morning in the last 9 years, so I think thanks largely to some of you who pioneered this program. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you very much, Ali. We're going to leave that for the last, but since you've disclosed that, very good. We also have with us here a regular on Good Morning Nigeria, PR and media consultant, Chief Great Imo, Jonathan.
I've warned you before that calling me chief is very costly for me because now my village people will be demanding all manner of things. So good to be here with you.
Okay, and joining us from our Ibadan Network Center is Mrs. Dalapo Patricia Dosumu, former State Director, National Orientation Agency, or your state. She's an icon of peace, World Institute of Peace and National Coordinator on Election Matters at the World Institute of Peace. It is a pleasure, Madam, to have you this morning.
Good morning. God bless you. It's good to be here again. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
All right, and via Zoom from Kaduna is Professor Kabir Maratu, a political scientist and former commissioner at the Kaduna State. Prof, you're welcome to the program. All right, I just hope that he heard me.
I think it's our engineers will advise.
Clear the line, yes, so that we can.
Not just the line. Perhaps it's muted himself for the Zoom. I believe so.
Exactly.
If our engineers get across to him quickly enough, I'm sure he'll be able to do that. Well, Madam and gentlemen, let's take a look at this. We cannot pretend about our country. Today is the 2nd of June. We had the inauguration of the new federal administration on Monday, which was the 29th of May. In February, on the 25th of February, to be precise, we had the presidential election. And many, of course, know, not just in terms of the outcome, the process that led to the election, what happened in the course of the election, and thereafter, of course, also with the National Assembly on the same day, and then the governorship elections on the 18th of March. Our fault lines were again exaggerated, reopened old wounds, and It wasn't altogether a very pleasant experience. In terms of litigating the outcome, that's ongoing. But Nigeria would appear to have been traumatized by the 2023 general elections. Let me begin with the former director of NOAA in Oyo State, Mrs. Dolakbo Dosumo. Mrs. Dolakbo Dosumo, well, time, they say, it takes care of most things. Are we now in the mood to begin to look at, as it were, to say, well, all that happened 3 months ago, let's move on with our lives? We cannot be in a perpetual state of warring or at the same time of being in conflict. What do you think is the national mood now, and how can that be affected?
Well, thank you so much. You know, it is expected that when a nation has just gone through the process of election campaigns, election procedures, and eventually a winner will emerge. So now we have a winner in Nigeria, which is the President Tinubu. I think for now, the attention of our people has shifted to living to be hopeful that what could this government offer us? And good enough, the people that were aggrieved with the procedure of the election are in the courts of law. So that one is there. But for the generality of the people, I think when you have an election that produced a fairly acceptable leader, you know, there's not going to be much, you know, bitterness, opposition, or grievances, because as you could see now, people are already engaged in what is this government bringing to us? What are we gaining from this new government? What people are trying to understand, can this government see to our well-being, improve on our well-being? So the expectation is that, how can I, you know, my lot be better in this new government? Unfortunately, Mr. President has been trying to, you know, send out olive hands, hands of fellowship to people that he thinks need to be brought into the government. And he has made it clear that his government is for everybody in Nigeria. So I think our people are very hopeful. Everybody is looking at, how would my well-being be improved? How would my economy be improved? And unfortunately, you know, I will expect that when an economic policy that will directly affect the people will be introduced at the early stage of a government, there has to be a communication between the government and the people. Because if you're passing a law, or if you're deciding on a policy that you think will affect the well-being of our people, it is natural for you to talk with them. Sit down. This is what we want to do. This is how it affects you. And this is what the government is expecting to gain from this. So when this happens, there won't be this misconception, lack of education, or grievances that we're witnessing concerning the withdrawal of the petroleum subsidy. So we're still hopeful that, well, if people get to know why government is taking that decision, it will be accepted. And it will be for our better in the nearest future. Thank you.
Okay, thanks indeed, Mrs. Dosumo. Let's return to the studio now and ask Great Imo Jonathan to also let us know his reading of the situation. Of course, my colleague highlighted the fault lines, you know, which were exacerbated at some point. They were touching all aspects of our existence, religion, ethnicity, you know, agitation, and what have you, into focus, you know, during that period. Now that we have arrived at a point where we have a sitting president, and he has to deal with the healing and reconciliation and what have you, that's what we're talking about now. Now, what's your reading about the situation and the mood of the people, especially the people that you represent?
Well, let me start by saying our sister over there started by her opening speech by saying it is expected that after election. Why? It's because we have gone through this cycle over and over and over, and Nigeria is getting used to it. We expect that during elections it will be like war. We will fight, we will kill each other, abuse each other, and when we are done, whoever gets the trophy we said, oh, it is expected. We keep going around the circle, and the nation keeps deteriorating. The psyche of the nation keep getting harmed. You know, before we came into the studio, we were having a discussion. I was telling our brother here that many people don't even know, for example, that the biggest Islamic school in Nigeria is in the southeast. But during the election, somebody wanted to believe that everybody in the southeast are all Christians and they're against Muslims. And some people will believe that everybody in the north are Muslims, they're against Christians. Then you go to the market, you go to Lagos Island, Mandela, you see Abdullahi with Kolade, with Emeka, they are all hustling together. They are finding, their daily bread together, mitigating the effects of our economy together. They don't have problems. Then you go to the church today in the city of Abuja, you see northerners, you see Christians, their pastor is a northerner or a Yoruba or Igbo, and they all sit there. You go to the mosque, you see them. Then in my state, we even have a kind of a social club where we have a northerner leading it, we have Yoruba, we have Igbo, we have Niger Delta. We are friends at that level. But once it comes to the election, why do we become enemies? The question is, we weaponize our diversity and turn it into negative views. So I would say that the problem of Nigeria has always been the political class. And I'll say this, a nation cannot heal except it begins to believe in truth. And like one of our former leaders from northern Nigeria say, truth is an open wound. Only conscience can heal. When we say, oh, let's get over it without telling ourselves the truth, we aren't going to heal. We are not going to move forward. The next 4 years, we'll expect that we'll go through this same cycle again. And then when we come out, then those who have either won or who have gotten the trophies, oh, let's move on. When we will stop going through this cycle? And to make it easier for us, I would say that maybe truth may be subjective. When you ask me what is truth, I may have a different opinion. But the only thing that is underlying that can be discovered as truth is the ground norm, which is the Constitution. When the rule of law is followed, beyond our sentiments, beyond our interests, we will arrive at something. Because that is why the late sage, late Bafemi Awolowo said that a nation governed by law is better than a nation governed by people, governed by men. If we have to have a peaceful, progressive Nigeria, let's learn to follow the law. And I don't think there are laws against ballot snatching, against whatever thing you might think of that has to do with the election. Did we follow it? And when we have gone through this process, the outcome, when we go to adjudicate it, did we actually follow the rule of law to arrive at who was wrong, who was right? We can't be saying it's expected. Let's learn to make progress by following our own rules of engagement, so that, because if we don't, I've heard people say in the next 4 years, people will begin to train guns, buy guns, because the next time, nobody's going to wait for INEC to announce the result. And you have to believe that when you have gone through this process, for you to heal, the only way to heal is to tell the truth. Let's tell the truth, because where there is no repentance, there is no forgiveness. And you can't be telling me let's forgive when you have not repented. Thank you.
Please take that last line again. Where there is no repentance,
no forgiveness, there cannot be no forgiveness.
There can be no forgiveness.
Yes, you can't be asking for me to forgive when you have not repented of your sins,
of your transgressions.
Of your transgression. Yeah,
all right, great, Jonathan. Thank you very much. Let's bring in Ali M. Ali, well, against the backdrop of the comments by the other two guests, let's have your initial intervention, that namely, look, Nigeria was traumatized by 2023. And on the eve of the inauguration of the new president, the inaugural lecture took place. And amongst the persons who spoke before the main speaker, that's the former president of Kenya, was Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka. And one line to take away from what he said is that all is not well with Nigeria, and that we should not and cannot pretend about it. What's your take?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the issue of the inaugural lecture. But just to also make a recap of what the previous speakers have said about the transition and the post-election trauma, I think in any election cycle, not just in Africa or just in Nigeria, it's a process. In the process of capturing political power, politicians, whether in Africa or in Australia, deploy whatever sentiment to arrest or to capture political power at whatever level. So it's expected. In more developed climes, what we think is a more defined, for example, in the United States, there's always that segmentation along race, along class, along social status. Now back home, we use the fourth line, the usual suspect, religion, ethnicity, because we want to capture political power. Once we capture it, what do we do differently? I think that is the thing that matters. Now, going back to what Father Hassan Kuka said in the, I think post the lecture delivered by Uhuru Kenyatta, who incidentally dwell on some of the things that actually and draw a striking similarity between what happened in Kenya and elsewhere in Africa, and especially Nigeria. You would think that he's actually talking about Nigeria. What he said, look, each time the election cycle, the first 2 years are devoted to healing, and by the third year, you start the vicious cycle all over again. So how do we break away from that? And then the theme Matthew Hassan Kuka has always dwell on, that all is not well with Nigeria. And we have some divisive figure over time since the dawn of Nigeria's independence. And this, we've taken certain steps to build a new Nigeria. For example, the post-civil war. What we did, the government at the time, was to try to reintegrate Nigerians. The policies pursued at that time, if you remember the 3 R's, reconciliation, rehabilitation, and what the other R for? Reconciliation, rehabilitation, and I think reconstruction. And then federal colleges were established. Some of us are product of integration. A new Nigeria was birthed at the time. NYSC scheme, people who, like some of us now, we went to unity colleges. Now, still, what happened? And this is where I think the issues raised by Matthew Hassan Kuka, that something is definitely wrong with the Nigerian. There is something just not right. Because in the past, and it's possible, we were talking a while ago, off camera, behind the scene, in the waiting room, how Nigeria was integrated, how it was possible. You might have been born in the north, but then you school in the south or somewhere else, and you get married to somebody from another part of the country, and you have a complete new Nigeria. But what happened to young ones now? Some of them are now more or less being fed daily syrup of hate. And these are the people expected to take over with time, because the old generation, the pre-independent generation, they are fast receding. So yes, something is wrong. We acknowledge. The first thing you do is, like you said, and I like that conclusion, if there is no repentance, there won't be forgiveness. But till this moment, there are people who are playing ostrich, thinking that actually their transgressions would remain either unnoticed or anonymous. And these are, at the end of the day, who will pay dearly for it. So it's important that beyond acknowledging that all is not well, what concrete steps have we taken to address this clear and present danger? Because anywhere, the elite, we all know this, the elites actually point their views, their action or inaction actually impact on the ordinary citizen. But it's only in Nigeria you see a seeming disconnect, amazingly. Like the image, I mean, the scenario he sketched, if you go down the social ladder, you find all Nigerians working together in marketplaces, in places of worship. And then one interesting thing, like people always make this reference, sports unite Nigerians. When you talk of sports now, football, in football, all Nigerians come together, and then we become faceless, we become the face of Nigeria. But when it comes to navigating the political arena and capturing political power, the Nigerian elite is not different from any elite across the world. But the difference with the Nigerian elite is hook or crook. You get it, and then the healing, that's where it matters most. Both the winner and the losers really sit around and say, okay, now we've done this. Look, let's think of forging ahead and making a nation. In the United States, let me just slightly make this last one point. In 1996, when Clinton surprisingly staged a major upset, just the way like JFK did in the early 60s, when he became president of the United States. Just a day before the election, there was a debate, I think a week or so. And then George Bush Sr. was asked about his opinion about Bill Clinton. And he said, look, beware of these baby boomers. And then Ross Perot also said, look, if you were to employ Bill Clinton in his vast oil, he won't go beyond a middle management level. The following day, after Bill Clinton was declared winner, the same Judge Bush was asked, he said, look, what opinion? He said, look, yesterday we were talking about the presidential candidate of a party. Today we are talking about the president-elect of the United States. The people have spoken. That's my concluding line.
Thank you indeed. I hope that will begin to happen here in this part of the world, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa. Professor Kabir Malto, you're a political scientist. I'm almost sure that what is playing out in Nigeria is not as a surprise. It's not surprising to you, having a good understanding of African politics, which of course you teach in the class. Now, we have gone through electioneering period, and this program also hosted you within that period on a number of topics, you know, to build up to the election, and even after the elections, we have engaged you on some topics. So now, what is your reading of the present situation? We're talking about reconciliation, thinking of how to ensure that Nigerians are carried along. Based on the outcome of the election and of course the protestations and what have you, what is your take on the present situation in the country, given of course also the fact that the president took a major step, you know, to change the course of our economic history by talking about removal of oil subsidy? Put all of that, you know, into context.
Thank you very much, Kiran. I think that's what we expect in this country today. I think you know, everyone should expect that you know, everything is not okay, and everything should not be okay in a plural society like ours. So, in my view, the statement by Bishop Kuka and people who think like that is simply, you know, amplifying or rather romanticizing an issue of basic political reality. If everything is okay, then there would have been no need for politics. If everything is okay, there would have been no need for election. If everything is okay, then there will have been no need for you know, leadership itself. So the society is in a process of you know, political convulsion at every point in time, and the role of politics and leadership, therefore, is to be able to throw up this obvious local and national contradictions for the political class to attempt to provide solutions to them. So it's not unexpected, as one of my panelists there has rightly mentioned. It's always been the case whenever there is electoral contestation, people try to exploit ways and means, you know, without recourse to even, you know, considering the very basic fault lines that we have of the people and as a nation. And these fault lines are often exploited in order to seek political favors and advantage. And that's why the issue of religion, the issue of ethnicity, the issue of region, state, you know, etc., comes about. And let's not pretend about it and make it look as if this is a peculiar Nigerian problem. No, it's in fact, it's a global problem. By the time Barack Obama was elected in the United States of America for the first time and apparently winning a re-election, there was a resurgence of white nationalism, which led, you know, to the throwing up of people like President Trump. You know, against a more urban and humane and, you know, experienced Hillary Clinton, because, you know, a certain specific category within the United States polity thought, you know, that they went to sleep when, you know, a descendant of perhaps, you know, a migrant, not even a descendant of ex-slaves, apparently became the president of America and ruled, you know, that dynamic society for 8 years. So the confusion, the contradictions, you know, and the crisis that we face after this election are similar to those crises that we have faced, after previous elections. And I dare say, just like the former president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, did rightly mention, it's not a peculiar African problem, it's a global. Whenever there is political contestation, you expect, that you have a political high blood pressure among the people within that particular, political entity. So it's normal. And I think what we need to do now is what, in my view, President Tinubu has begun to do by bringing about those who either believed in him, those who either voted for him or did not vote for him, and reassuring everybody that he's a president of Nigeria. And that's what politicians, that's what leaders do. And we always must take into cognizance that there is a very, huge gap between politics, elections, and governance, on the other hand. And I think the time now is governance. And every time we have elections, and I agree with all those who opine that the last election was the most, fought confrontational election that came along, not regional lines. Politics in Nigeria, elections in Nigeria have always been along either regional or ethnic lines. But I think the most dangerous dimension of the last election, was the sectarian, throwout that was introduced by not necessarily the political class, or not necessarily by the, contestants, but mainly by Nigerians, the clergies, the imams, etc., etc. And that has always been my view. One of the most dangerous things that anybody can throw out there, whether in the church or in the mosque, is not restricting himself or herself to the issue of calling people in the service of God, but rather, delving into the murky waters of politics, thereby instigating or confusing people to go one way or the other. And I think that's the most dangerous dimension of the 2023 elections, which President Tinubu must have to, and the rest of us, of course, Nigerians, must have to very seriously look inward, and see how to build these bridges and try, to correct the stresses, that have arisen as a result of that. But I am saying that there is nothing particularly too extraordinary about what has happened. The way we feel as the people and the nation now is merely a reflection of how we have always felt since, during colonial periods when elections were conducted. And I'm also saying that it's not particular or it's not peculiar, to either Nigeria or Africa, but it's a global phenomenon that, in every electoral contest, there will always have to emerge a winner and a loser. But then, of course, the major problem here has to do with the fact that in our own case, and of course, the Western liberal democracy that we are practicing in Nigeria today provides for the first past the poll. What it means, therefore, is that if you put together the number of Nigerians that came out to vote and voted for either Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, and other, candidates, if you put their numbers together, there will be much more than the numbers that actually voted for the president who is sitting in, the presidential villa today. So it means, therefore, that, the tyranny of the majority is at play. Tyranny of the majority in the sense that one candidate was able to secure more votes than the individual candidates that contested. But if you put the political support of the other candidates together, you'll find that there are more people that voted against the government that is in power today than, so this is normal. This is politics. And I think, therefore, to get out of it will require a lot about the political brinkmanship on the part of those who are magnanimous at the point of, electoral victory, for them to be able to talk to Nigerians, bring everybody together with a view to. And that does not mean that by the time we get to 2027, you're not going to see things like this. But let's pray that we play the politics in 2027, not on the basis of religion. It's more acceptable, if there is anything to say, to do politics of, tribe, ethnicity, regionalism, which are the major characters that define, the political and electoral flow in this country from colonial periods to this time. So I think It's time for us to settle down.
Professor Kabir Bato, we are going to have to pause you here. Thank you very much for your incisive intervention. Before we look ahead to 2027, we still have to deal with the consequences of 2023, which is why, of course, we're having this interaction. Two things that I want to again invite our attention to. Earlier, you were talking about the weaponization of our diversity and the exploitation of it, and the points that have been made by all, that this is a global phenomenon. But again, we have our own peculiar situations that we bear the consequences, the effects of what is happening around us. Americans are not bearing the consequences. Now, part of what has emerged, and typically again, of us as a suggestion for the healing process, is to say, look, who are the targets of the healing that should take place? Because ordinary folks whose heads were broken, whose property were damaged, or who lost their loved ones, were also the victims of the consequences of the weaponization of our diversity. But you keep hearing, okay, I have government of national unity, is the appeasement for the political class that manipulates diversity, or the appeasement should be for the citizens at large? Great.
Well, I love this because each time we look at reconciling Nigeria, we look at the political bigwigs reconciling their own interests. To reconcile Nigeria needs to first reconcile itself by saying, what are the rules by which we must play? What are the consequences for the actions of people? What are the palliatives we must give when we want to reconcile, when we want to ameliorate the suffering